Well, welcome aboard, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. You're with myself, Steve Wyss, and James Eastham. And if that intro doesn't get you in the mood for Halloween, then what will get you in the mood? I hope everyone's doing really well. And happy Halloween to you, James.
Yes, and you, Steve. Second meeting of the day, isn't it? We've already done the weekend show, which isn't out there yet, but will be soon. So, yeah, happy Halloween to you too, mate. And it's great, actually, we've got this show because there are obviously games going on in Europe tonight, Thursday, Halloween, that we haven't covered in the weekend show. So looking forward to going through the programme.
We've got 3 Serie A games from Italy to preview, best bets. And because James is on the show, we have the great opportunity to talk about 2 French games tomorrow, which we wouldn't normally have a chance to discuss. So stay tuned for that. What's everyone's best bets today? Were you on the Dodgers, James, on the outright for the World Series baseball? Because they had an incredible comeback in Game 6 last night to clinch the series. They were 20-1 live after being behind 5-0 and came back. The Dodgers winning the World Series wasn't a great one for the sportsbook, though. They were the pre-season favourites. So not a great one for Bet Rivers on the outright futures, but well, with the matchup against the Yankees, it was never going to be great for the sports books. But well done to Shakespeare, our resident MLB tipster on the comments. He said the Dodgers were a lock for this series. Well done to Shakespeare. And thanks for everyone who's been getting involved with the baseball tips on the show with the comments and stuff. Hope everyone managed to make quite a bit of money on this MLB season. So, Halloween night here. Serie A, is it going to be a trick or treat, James, with the betting? We are going to start with, let's start with the early game. This is Genoa against Fiorentina, 5:30 local time. I'm a bit confused with the clock changings at the minute, but I think this is a 2 p.m. 1:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff here. Genoa against Fiorentina. Fiorentina are now minus 143 at the time of going live. Genoa plus 375, and the tie is plus 285. I think the last time we were on the live show together, we discussed Fiorentina. I think it was in against St. Gallen, and I really liked the overs that night. Quite like the overs again, to be honest. But Fiorentina are absolutely incredible goal-scoring form. They look pretty difficult to oppose to me.
Yeah, I would agree, Steve. I was a little bit surprised at the price. It's around that minus 140 mark, as you've said. A little bit of movement either side of that. But I was surprised because there's a really big difference at the moment in form between these two teams. And I actually thought Fiorentina would be shorter than this. They're obviously minus money favourites. A lot of people might look at that and think, you know what, away from home, they're already minus money. Why would they be shorter than that? But I think there is a case that they could be shorter than that because they're going into this in really good form. I think they've won 4 out of 5, drawn the other one. And it's the opposite from Genoa. Genoa have lost 4 out of 5 and drawn the other one. And are bottom of the table. I mean, we should say, I think it might have escaped people's attention just how much Genoa are struggling at the moment. They're right down there. So I think the price on Fiorentina, yes, it's minus money away from home. But, yeah, you've mentioned the goals, Steve, and a lot of their goals have been coming away from home. That St. Gallen game in Europe that you referenced that we talked about on the live show. What was it, 10 days ago, something like that? I don't know. That was away from home. They scored 4. Away from home to Lecce in their last away game in Serie A, they scored 6. So there's no problem with getting the goals in general for Fiorentina, and there's no problem with getting the goals away from home for Fiorentina. And that really, for me, swung it, because I felt, this is a team who are playing well home and away, scoring goals home and away. Team news, obviously we're recording this a couple of hours before the game starts. It looks as though Genoa are going to have players missing. Fiorentina, we think, maybe as well. Keane in attack. Latest I've seen is that he might be out. He has been scoring goals, but I still think Fiorentina should have enough here because they've been in such good form. So, yeah, my reading of the game, Steve, is that minus 141, I think it was when I wrote it down. As I say, that price on Fiorentina is around the minus 140 mark. I think it's a good price. I think they could be a little bit shorter than that. And so I quite like them on the Asian handicap. Fiorentina minus 0.75 on the Asian handicaps, available at minus 108. I think that's a good pick. You make a profit with that pick as long as Fiorentina win the game. And they're scoring so many goals at the moment. There's a fair chance, I think, that they can go on and win this by 2 goals, in which case all your stakes win. So, yeah, that was my read on it. I don't know how you see it, Steve, but I think that Fiorentina, they do look the pick to me. And I think, as I say, the difference in form between these two sides at the moment, for me, isn't completely reflected in these prices.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts there. Good day to Rick. Reese Williams says Nantes versus Marseille, away win, best bet of the week. We'll talk about a bit of French football later on. Philip, welcome in. Disky Cross, morning from Australia, 2 a.m. Very, very loyal watcher there from there. Foxy, good to see you. Ginepi, COD Gaming, Ming, welcome in, everyone. Kirk there has come up with a bet that I really like for this game, and this is a Fiorentina team total over 1.5 goals. It's available at minus 122 with Bet Rivers. Just need Fiorentina to score 2 or more goals for this game. I quite like them on the money line as well. They've been well backed in. I'm just looking at the money handle for the game now with Bet Rivers. And it's quite significant, as you might expect with Fiorentina. 98% of the money's on them, and 93% of the tickets, and of the over-under market, 91% of the money's on the over, 2.5 line, that is. So, I mean, the way I see it, Genoa, they've been in the news this week with Mario Balotelli, who's joined the club. He's not going to be playing tonight, I don't believe. And, I mean, they might, it's a bit of a maverick signing, but I looked at their underlying metrics, and we talked about this on the show we recorded earlier today. And Genoa's are very, very worrying at both ends of the field. And I think they might be looking at that. They know they need to improve. And the way of doing that is to obviously add personnel in now in January. And I think they're a work in progress. It's not, they just don't feel in a good phase. Fiorentina are a very good side. I've seen quite a lot of them in the last few years, mostly because of their European exploits, and they're just scoring goals for fun. Jonathan Bamba looks in great form for them.
Yeah.
And yes, Moise Keane looks like he's going to miss this, but the goals have been spread around evenly with them. Foxy says, I think both teams have scored no, he quite likes here. Genoa's home games this season have been alternate between draw and a loss. Surely they lose this one, though, and he doesn't think they'll score. Genoa are struggling. They just lack. They do lack offensive firepower as well. That's why the handicap that you're suggesting up there on Fiorentina could be. I think that's a really good bet as well, because it does cover for that 1-0, the 2-0, in case it doesn't. If we take in the overs, yes, Fiorentina could cover it on their own, but we necessarily can't rely on Genoa to score in this game, James. Yeah,
that's it. And the thing is, Steve, like I say, you get some teams who are just happy to get the game won. They probably won't push forward if they take the lead. Fiorentina are not that team at the moment. The way they continue to attack against St. Gallen, the way they continue to attack in that win against Lecce when they scored 6 away from home. It's very clear at the moment what their approach is. We've not mentioned it, but they won 5-1 at home to Roma. So I don't see any reason why that would change here if they were to take the lead. I can't see them sitting back on a 1-goal lead if they do go ahead at some point. So that's why I like the handicap. I think, some teams you don't really expect to beat it by too much. But if Fiorentina are to win the game, obviously they need to get the game won. But if they do get the game won, I'd actually be a bit surprised if it was only by 1 goal, because what we've been seeing from them recently has been so positive. I think they'll just keep attacking. And I think the thing is about confidence. People will talk in betting circles about the importance of confidence, how much of a role does it play. I think in terms of beating handicaps, it is a real thing. I think the momentum of scoring goals, the goals being shared out around the different players in a squad, I think it can continue as long as it continues. Fiorentina are in one of those phases at the moment where they're winning by big margins. Lots of players are getting forward and contributing in the final third. So I don't see why that would change here. It might change if they didn't manage it here, that maybe they'll change their style in the next outing. But yeah, I think the handicap is a good way to play it because, as I say, with the minus 0.75 pick, you'll make something as long as they win it, and they can go on and win it by more than one, I think.
That's your bet for the game. My bet is the team total over 1.5 for Fiorentina, minus 122. And someone's asking now, what do you think Fiorentina will win 1-2 or 3-0? You can actually bet on Bet Rivers here, Fiorentina to win and both teams score no, same as win to nil, at plus 155, which that does look reasonably generous, actually. If you do like the, I think I would actually want the 4-0 covered as well. I mean, that sounds extreme, but they've been scoring so many goals that you just never know, do you? But these midweek games, then teams can sometimes just ease off a little bit because they're looking at the weekend. First half team total plus 440 for Fiorentina. Again, I wouldn't want to put off anyone thinking along those lines. Let's move to the second game of the evening. It is Roma. An out-of-form Roma here, 3:45 Eastern. This is against Torino, and minus money, favourites minus 141. Torino plus 390. We've got an over-under goal line, minus 106 for over 2.5 goals, and Roma are in a real mess. I mean, my notes written down for this game, there might be some sort of fan protest inside the ground, first 15 minutes, things like that. There's expected to be a 59,000 attendance here in Olimpico. Could be the lowest attendance for 2 years for Roma, because they're just not that popular at the minute. They're not playing that well. Ivan Juric is under some pressure. Could you trust them as a minus money favourite?
No, would be my answer to that, Steve. Roma, again, the prices on these games as we head towards kickoff, they may change a little bit. Roma minus 141 when I was making my notes earlier. No, I wouldn't be backing Roma at those odds. To be honest, I don't have much faith in either of these two teams. They do offer certain opportunities, I think, on the game, but winning the game wouldn't be one way of playing it for me on either side. I think if you look at Roma, I think they've not won any of their last 3. You look at Torino, they've lost 3 of their last 4. So there's problems with form for both these teams at the moment. And as you say, Roma have got a lot of problems. They've already changed their manager once this season. If they don't win here, the reports coming out of Italy are that they might change another manager. Juric might go. He's under a lot of pressure because things haven't improved since he took over in September. So there's no form patterns on either team. There's no reason to expect either side to do particularly well here, dominate the game or anything like that. So it's hard to know where to go. The longer I looked at it, the more I do like the goals market. And that's not just looking for a bet or an angle on the game. I do think there's some value in it. A lot of that comes from Torino, Steve. We talked about this on the weekly show a few times. The fact that if you watch Torino play this season, they are generally more positive than you might expect when they go up against some of the better teams and or bigger clubs in the division. So if you look through their fixtures so far, they've actually scored more goals than you'd expect against top sides. Now, Roma aren't playing well. They wouldn't be considered a top side at the moment, but they're obviously still a very big name in the division. And I think the way Torino will go about this is they'll actually have a go. They know Roma are under pressure. They know Roma aren't playing well. And that has been the Torino style this season when they've come up against the bigger clubs. So as a lean rather than a pick, I do quite like over 2.5 goals. It's available at close to evens. It's only just minus money. It's minus 106. A little bit surprised at that. I thought maybe minus 106 would be the price for over 2.75 goals. So, yeah, quite interested in that. But it would be a lean. It wouldn't be a pick. I just have little faith really in Roma playing in any particular way. At the moment, we don't know what we're going to get from them. We're getting very little good football from them. And Torino, for all they do have a goals threat, there's not a lot of form from them in terms of how they're playing over 90 minutes either. So that price on Roma to win, I wouldn't get involved in that, minus 141, something like that. I wouldn't back Torino or the tie either here. the goals would be the only way really to play this for me. Certainly less strong on this game than I am on the Fiorentina game. If you're looking at the two and thinking which one to go for, I'd be looking at the Fiorentina match. But this will be a fascinating game because, as you say, Steve, Roma are a big name club and they're under a lot of pressure here. So it's going to be a pivotal evening, you feel, for Roma and for their season after tonight.
Yeah, there's some interesting comments about Roma here. Reece Williams says Juric brought his Torino mid-table curse to Roma. Both teams to score. Yes, it's fishy. Roma's very boring to watch, says Foxy. I mean, I would agree with that. I think, again, last time me and you were on a live show together, I took Roma on a handicap against Dynamo Kiev, got a push from the game. They got a goal, and then just kind of that was enough for them. Didn't really. Yeah. They probably could have added a second, but it wasn't obvious. 1-0. They were happy with that. Ming Chung says Roma should be performing better with their squad. I think they're certainly better. They should be better than where they are. Quite how good, I'm not sure. Manager, if they lose the match tonight, the manager will go. Ming, no doubt about it whatsoever. If they draw the match tonight, that might be enough. Rumours of Roberto Mancini could be lined up for the Roma job. So he's on the hot seat. This is a serious hot seat situation. And if I was to bet on it, if I had a free $10 bet for the game, I'd take Torino money line just to see and find out. But this is a difficult game to get in. When you've got fans, I've also seen situations before. I remember when my own team, Leeds, played Chelsea when Graham Potter was close to the sack. We thought we were going to go there and beat them, and Chelsea actually won. So you just never know, do you? Tough game.
Yes.
But, loads of different
angles. I think the point there, Steve, that in the comments about Roma should be doing better, I would agree with that. They're 12th at the moment in the table. The issue I think they've got to some degree is they're not good enough, are they, to challenge at the top of the table? And they kind of knew that going into the season. There's a sense, I think, at Roma that they're not quite sure where they sit at the moment. For me on paper, before we kicked off for 24-25 season, they didn't look as good as Inter, Juventus, Napoli. They didn't look as good as Milan either to me. I know Milan aren't doing very well at the moment, but Roma in the bottom half. The comment's right. They shouldn't be that low, but they're struggling to really find any rhythm, and they're struggling to know where they fit into the division a little bit, I think, this season for sure.
And happy Halloween, says Winston Churchill. What costumes are you wearing? I'm actually going to a Halloween disco with my youngest daughter this evening, and then probably marauding around the streets, knowing this particular area. I'm actually off to a fancy dress party on Saturday. Come dressed as a legend, either dead or alive. So,
cool.
Elvis is going to be me on Saturday for
Safe.
one night only. For one night only, James.
Safe bet.
I've noticed that pumpkin behind you. That pumpkin behind you. You're into the Halloween spirit. I
am, Steve. I've said it before. Not on this show, on the weekly show. Your social life wipes the floor with me. You play golf. You go to the fairground. You've got a whole raft of Halloween events lined up. I'm not going anywhere. I'm expecting knocks on the door later where I live. So I will be getting some treats in rather than tricks. That's about the extent of my evening, I think.
Are your treats that you're giving pics out to the kids? Get on, I don't know, Lyon tomorrow at the bookies. Get your dad to get on there and you can...
How to be met by blank stares. No, there will be normal treats, I assure you.
Player Cam asked, I forgot about this one. Stephen James, what websites to use for football, for researching soccer games? And I mean, loads of different ones. Honestly, loads. I tell you, I think the Flash Score is really good these days. Not just for keeping track of your scores, but they've got injuries and stuff on there now. For actual stats, I've used Y-Scout quite a bit. But Understat's quite good now for like underlying metrics, I find.
I would agree with some of those things. Well, I was just going to say Flash Score. I think Flash Score is really good as well, just for an overview of five game form. What I really like about Flash Score is the under-over tables are really clear on there. You can very quickly look at the standings per division. Under-over, you can look at under-over goals, home and away. So it's really nicely laid out. I quite like who scored. I don't know if people use that. I like that for very specifically for the player position, post-match player positions. There's probably other ones out there, but who scored I really like for showing you where players are. For things like shot on target market, which I really like, regular viewers might know that. The who scored post-match match report option to see what the average player position was per player just can be useful to show you whereabouts on the pitch they were. So, yeah, there's loads out there. I'm not a huge user of stats, I think, compared to other people, but one or two for really quick, good visual overviews, I think, can be really useful.
Player Cam says Torino over 0.5 goals in play. Ian Messina says both teams scoring over 2.5. Coach Zanko, great to see you in. Good friend. Any good picks for today? At the minute, we've gone Fiorentina and the team total for Fiorentina, Coach. Ming Chung says really likes Lazio tonight. Best bet on the money line. And that's the match we're going to go to now, actually. Como against Lazio. Como. They've been drifting actually today. Como plus 195. Lazio have been nibbled in to plus 148. Money from Ming there, no doubt, affecting the line movement there. Over 2.5 goals at minus 108 for this particular contest. Quite like both teams score yes here, James. I've got this down. I think it's quite a big price on about minus 125 the last time I looked. Seen quite a bit of Lazio this season as well in Europe. Quite an open team in general. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating game from an analytical point of view to see how it might go. There's contrasting reasons to both back and not back teams, I think, in this game. So if you look at Lazio, obviously the comment there saying they're a good bet. I get where that's coming from. Their form is really good. If you look at their last 7 games, Steve, they've won 6 of. This is across all competitions. They've won 6 of them. The only one they didn't win was against Juventus, and they went down to 10 men, right? So there's mitigating circumstances there. But other than that, they've been great. Really big wins over Nice and Dynamo Kiev in Europe. They had a 3-2 win against Torino. They had a big home win against Genoa. So Lazio are really firing here. 17 goals in their last 7 games. With a record like that, they should be going into this game with loads and loads of confidence. I think they're 7 points above Como in the table. They're 7 places above Como in the table. They've won 3 of their last 4 as well as 6 of their last 7. So when I first looked at this game, to be honest with you, I looked at the Lazio price of 150 plus 150, and I thought, wow, that's actually quite big. Another way of looking at this game, which sort of contradicts some of that, is when you look at the home and away form of the 2 teams. So people out there watching, they'll have differing views about how important home and away form is. Como haven't actually lost at home yet this season. They've only played 3 games at home and they haven't lost any. They've drawn 1. Sorry, they've won 1 and they've drawn 2. And Lazio haven't been great away from home. I think they've lost 3 out of 4 away from home. That's just in Serie A. So that made me think, you know what, I'm not quite sure about this. The other thing to say about Lazio, which maybe doesn't apply in the same way to Como, is their schedule. They play this game, then they've got the game at the weekend, which is actually on Monday night against Cagliari. But then next Thursday, they've got a big game against Porto away from home in Europe. So I think putting yourself in the shoes of the Lazio camp, will they rotate tonight? I think they might do. I'm not saying Como is the easiest of these 3 games they've got coming up, because they've also got Cagliari at home on Monday. But I think that Porto game this time next week is a really big game. And obviously, when you've got 3 games in a week like this, or in 8 days, then rotation might come into it. So I fully understand people who like Lazio here. As I say, their general form is brilliant across both Europe and Serie A. But I just have a few doubts about the team news. And as I say, Como at home, what we've seen from a limited sample size so far, they've looked pretty good. So the more I looked at it, the prices on the game, to me, honestly, they look about right. Como are the underdogs, but not by a huge amount. I think plus 188 was the note I made on them, with Lazio plus 150. So taking everything into account on this game, should be a really interesting watch. Really good guidelines for the next few weeks about these 2 teams. But I couldn't actually see anything here that I was willing to hang my hat on. So there's no pick and no lean here. But as I say, reasons really, I think that you can make all sorts of cases. It just depends how strongly you feel about it.
Yeah, this is my second pick of the day. Is both teams to score yes, minus 141. Would have wanted bigger odds ideally, but I think it's acceptable enough. We've got some all sorts of different comments about Lazio here, which is probably a good thing actually in terms of this bet. We've got people like Ming here saying, Lazio a really good team. Foxy's not convinced by them. Cod Gaming likes Lazio over 1.5 goals. And coach Zanko absolutely right. Fiorentina to score 2 or more. I love that bet. That would be my best bet of the day in Italy. Yeah. All Lazio away games apart from the one against Juve have gone over 2.5. I did look at Lazio's away fixtures and they have been tough or tougher. And I've always said it, fixtures are king. Fixtures are absolutely king. But someone also asked about Como over 1.5 team total. Quite a big price, plus 175. They're a tough team to get a handle on, I think, Como. I really struggled with them this season. But they have scored in every home game. So
yeah, I would agree with that, Steve. Obviously they were really interesting, weren't they, when they came into the division. Everyone's quite excited by what are they going to produce. And I think they've been really interesting it's been interesting to follow their progress. But I would agree they've been quite difficult at the moment. That sample size at home obviously isn't very big yet. So it's a bit early in the season almost for me to have a definitive view on Como. Lazio, in a funny kind of way, I found quite difficult to read as well. Other than the goals, obviously they've been mentioned in a few of the comments there. I think they are generally a positive side. I don't think that would change tonight. I think they'll be pretty positive here, away from home to a team who are quite a bit lower than them in the table. When you're in good form, why wouldn't you have a go at winning it? So Lazio, again, for me, not a team I've got the best read on, I don't think, at the moment in Serie A, and especially away from home, as I say, that's really, for me, the deciding factor to leave this one alone. I just still have a few question marks against Lazio away from home. The point you make is a really valid one about the fixtures. You could argue this would be a chance for Lazio to prove they can play away from home because it's maybe a bit easier than some of the away games they've faced so far. But yeah, for me, compared to the other 2 games tonight in Serie A, this is the one to take a watching brief on, I think.
98% of the money is on Lazio. 77% of the over-under money is on the over. Biggest prop bet on the game is Lazio under 12.5 total shots at -121 so far. So that's an interesting angle there. What are you all taking tonight? What's your best bet in Serie A? We've got James on the show, so I thought, you know what? We've got 2 matches in France tomorrow. We might as well pick his brains to see what he fancies. We've got Monaco against Angers. This is 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday, and the big one, Lille against Lyon. 4 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. Let's start with that big game, Lille against Lyon, because we've got Bruno Genesio up against his old former team. Lille, I was a little bit surprised, actually. At the minute, plus 108 on the money line. I thought they might be a little bit bigger here, and Lyon did tempt me in, but Lyon have not served this show very well over the last 2 matches they've played. They did look in great form. I don't know even... I mean, what has gone wrong? I mean, has it just been they just haven't finished their chances? How do you see this going, James, tomorrow? Lyon.
Yeah, it's a really tough game, this, for me to have a really strong pick on or lean on. Lyon are an interesting side. There's a lot of talent in that squad. We had a good couple of runs. Well, I had a couple of winners on them, I think, on the weekend show. And they're actually in good form. If you look at their stats going into this in League One, I think it's 3 wins and a draw from the last 4. But you are right. We both backed them on the weekend show last weekend against Auxerre, and they let us down because they drew 2-2. They'd lost at home to Besiktas a few days before that in Europe. So they've hit a bit of a stumbling block. I think they'll come good. I think they'll have a good season. I think the issue at the moment for Lyon is just a lack of maturity in the side. And I don't mean that in terms of the individual players not being mature enough. It's more to do with the side not having bedded down yet. They've had an awful lot of changes to this starting 11 since the season began. 2 things, loads of transfers in the summer, and a lot of them were quite late in the window. And the other thing is the manager, Pierre Sarge, he has chopped and changed the tactics. He's used the back 3, and he's now pretty much settled on a back 4. But what I think that means is you just don't have a settled unit where everybody's aware of where everybody else is on the pitch. And while, the individual talent they've got is undeniable and can get them out of trouble, my view on that is that when you don't have a really settled side and players are still getting used to the shape and where everybody else is around them, you can get tripped up a few times. And I think that's what we've seen from Lyon in their last couple of games. So it makes them a hard read here, because I would tend to agree with you. I think the price on Lyon is pretty big, plus 230, when you consider the quality they've got, when you consider that they should finish pretty much around Lille in the league table this season. There's not a great deal to pick between them. I just have a few concerns, as I say, about just how good they are at the moment and how ready they are to go game after game after game without slipping up. One other big factor, Steve, on this game for people who are looking at it tomorrow, for me, would be the potential for rotation, probably affecting Lille more than Lyon. And the reason for that is Lille play Juventus in Europe next Tuesday. That's a massive game for Lille, away in Turin in the Champions League. We've seen Bruno Janetta at Lille rotating between Europe and League One this season. We're not quite sure whether he'll rotate here or whether he'd rotate against Juventus. I personally think there will be a couple of players rested here from kickoff who would ordinarily start, and that would make Lyon an even better pick, and the price on Lyon would look even stronger. So I tend to lean a little bit here towards Lyon at the moment, but it's one of those games for me where I'd rather wait for team news and see just how strong these two sides are, especially Lille at home, as I say, because I think there'll be rotation. But yeah, fascinating game. These two sides are potential top 6 sides in League One this season. Loads of quality on show, so it should be an entertaining game. I had a little bit of a look at the goals. Over 3 is plus 105. Half tempted by that, but in the end, I don't know what you think, Steve. It was for me a game to watch and enjoy, really, rather than have a pick on.
I totally agree. I think I'm going to watch this. I want to get something out from both teams because I think going forward, both sides might be quite backable in certain situations, especially Lyon if they get their act together again. Quite like the tie here, plus 285. I think that covers. I mean, if it was a 0-0, you wouldn't be shocked. If it was 3-3, I don't think you'd be shocked.
Yeah,
it's that sort of game.
Yeah.
So I do quite like the tie there. Let's have a look there. Ming says Lille are more trustable, and that's probably fair, actually.
Yeah,
probably
just
fair.
about, you would say. Yeah, you have to say they've done. I think they've won 3 out of 4, 3 out of the last 4 in the league of Lille. They've drawn the other. They beat Lens in the derby last week. They beat Atletico Madrid away from home with a very understrength side. You can't argue at the moment, can you? Really, that Lille are delivering the goods, aren't they?
Shane, happy Halloween to you. I hope you enjoy today. I hope everyone enjoys their Halloween day. Let's have a look now at the final game of tomorrow we're going to talk about. This is on Monaco against Angers. This is a 2 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Monaco, -2 Asian favourites, and they're actually now -480 on the money line. There's been some money for Monaco today on the day before the match. Angers are now as big as 12-1 to win this particular fixture. I'm banned from betting on Monaco games for a bit, but yes. Hear me out here. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm going to see what you think. I'm going to see what chat think here. Yeah. What about both teams score? Yes, at -105. So this is nearly even money. Angers have scored in all of their last 7 Ligue 1 games. You're looking back to August, the last time they drew a blank. Monaco have been known to be sloppy from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems a silly price. It just looks a big price. I mean, whether you can trust, we presume Monaco will score. That's as a -2 favourite. You got to presume that. It's just really a question whether Angers will get on the score sheet. Could you see it happening?
I think that's a really good shout, Steve. I've got to say, I hadn't picked that one out myself on this game, but I think it's a good shout. What I would say about Angers is that they produced, for me, their best attacking performance of the season last weekend. They won 4-2 at home to Saint-Etienne. People didn't watch that game. What was interesting about it for me was how many different attacking players contributed to that win. I always like a team to score the following week if lots of different players have contributed, either with a goal or an assist or a penultimate pass, because I think what that means is when they go into the next game, you're not just relying on one player to produce something. There's all sorts of players in that Angers side last weekend who were good. Just to name a few of them, Nian started as the centre forward. He was frozen out at Angers at the beginning of the season. He's back in the fold. He scored last weekend. Bamba Dieng came off the bench because he's been injured recently and scored late on. Abdelli, a player I'm going to mention in a different market in a minute, scored from the number 10 position. And El Malali, who's been playing on the wing, certainly won a penalty, and he's contributed with a goal recently as well. So, it's very interesting, actually, is that pick, Steve, because you've got a lot of players at Angers who purely from last weekend, will be going into this game this weekend, feeling like they can do something. And as you've said, Monaco will almost certainly score. If you're Angers, you go into this game knowing if you want something out of it, you're probably going to have to score. Your chances of keeping a clean sheet away from home against arguably the best side in League One right now in Monaco are very, very slim. So I think the combination of that, knowing they need to score, and how they played last weekend and who contributed to that 4-2 win, why wouldn't they be positive? Then it's a case of, well, can they produce and get that goal? But in terms of their mindset and their approach to the game, I think you're onto something there, to be honest, because I think that's the only way Angers can really go about this match if they want to get something out of it.
You like a shot on target here, one of your famous shot on target bets.
Yes.
Which player interests you here?
The player that interests me is Abdelli at Angers. He's available at plus 170 to have over 0.5 shots on target. I think plus 170 is too big on him. I don't think it's huge. It's not one of those that I would pick out on the weekly show maybe as my very, very top bet. But I think plus 170 on Abdelli to have over 0.5 shots on target is too big. The reason for that is I really like the way he played last weekend. He's a number 10, playing in a 4-2-3-1 system at Angers. My slight criticism of him is he doesn't sometimes get forward himself enough to get into those really advanced positions. Well, he definitely did that last weekend against Saint-Etienne. His goal came from him breaking into the penalty area, well forward beyond the striker, and he finished. So I would take that into account with Abdelli. The second thing is he has scored from the penalty spot this season. Now, we don't know for sure that he's going to be on penalties. I think it was Nian who scored the penalty for Angers last weekend, and Abdelli was still on the pitch. So there's some doubt over whether he's the absolute nailed-on penalty taker every week, but he has scored from the penalty spot. And just on shots on target in general, he has managed to shot on target in each of his last 3 matches. So I think that, combined with the fact he scored last weekend, means that if you are Abdelli and you're going into this game at Monaco this weekend, part of your visualization of the game and what you need to do in it will be about goals. It will be about goals, and it will be about getting into forward positions. So I went through all the prices on the game, had a good long look at all the Angers prices in this particular market. El Malali is quite interesting as well. I think he's a little bit short. He was at plus 155. But Abdelli for me would be the standout. I think plus 170 to have over 0.5 shots on target, given the pattern of play from him over the last 3 games, I think is a good price. I think at the very least you'll get a run for your money there, because as long as he stays on the pitch and he avoids an injury or anything like that, I think his play will be designed to get into those advanced positions and at least have attempts on goal. So yeah, he's my main pick on the game, Steve. I looked at some of the other markets, but Abdelli for me would be my main selection.
Yeah, him had Abdelli over 0.5 shots on target. That's his name on the screen for those who are wondering how it's spelt. This is in Monaco against Angers tomorrow in France. And great to get your thoughts on the 2 games tomorrow, James. We've got a question here from Kevin. Kevin Broadser. It's quite a good question, this, actually. It felt like Brighton faded the last 2 seasons late in the year under De Zerbi. Could that happen with Marseille, and is there value on those 3 teams there? What do you think?
Yeah. Interesting. I think there's question marks about De Zerbi at the moment. It sounds a bit harsh that Marseille played well in a lot of their games, but possibly. I must admit, I don't follow the Premier League closely enough to have a really considered view. Obviously, I'm aware of what he did at Brighton. I think in Marseille's advantage and De Zerbi's advantage is the fact they're not playing in Europe. They've only got the 34 league games to contend with, and then however well they do in the French Cup. So they should manage to stay relatively fresh, and the squad is big enough for him to change things around. So if they were to fade, it shouldn't be through purely fatigue. But yeah, it's an interesting point. The second part of that question, are any of those teams worth backing? I haven't got the prices at the moment. I quite like what I'm seeing at the moment from Lens, I must admit. I know they lost last weekend against Lille, but it's a point you made very well, Steve, on the weekly show, probably over a month ago now. They don't concede many goals under Will still. And I think over the course of the season, Lens, even though they're not the most exciting to watch at the moment, I think they'll stick around at the top of the table, and they weren't many people's picks to be in the top 3 or top 4. Like Marseille, they're also out of Europe. So I think Lens, I think they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. After that, it depends on prices, whether they're the value pick. So I can't say they're the value pick because, as I say, I haven't got the prices at the moment. But that market, top 3, top 4 finish, will be fascinating because you've got 8 or 9 teams in France who've got the potential to have a say in it, and at some point I think there will be some value opportunities in it.
I personally have futures tickets on Marseille without PSG. I've got Lyon to finish in the top 3 and top 4. So I mean, at the minute both are kind of could go either way. In terms of the question, it really shouldn't happen this season, Kevin, logically. I think if they were involved in Europe, different matter entirely, but they're not in Europe, like you say. They might hopefully have a good run in the Coupe de France. But if they fade this season, then that spells big trouble for the future.
It does.
So it really would. But I don't. That's why I don't think it will happen. But let's wait and see. Marseille really should cruise to second place. I'm sorry, they should, especially if they reinforce in January.
And just very quickly on that, Steve, for people who don't follow them as closely as you and I do, there are about 22 players in that squad. You know, there's 2 players in every position. There's the opportunity to not just rotate because players have got tired, but also change it if players aren't performing. You know, they've got someone like Mumbanya in attack who we think will come back from a serious injury he's got at the moment before the end of the season. Little things like that mean I don't think they should fade. There's enough there for them to not to. So I'm completely on the same page as you on this. There's no excuse really if they do fade because there's plenty there to stay the distance.
We can't get away from Marseille, can we? We thought we'd avoided it on Betting Weekly Extra Time today, a European edition, but it came up that the European Betting Weekly Extra Time European edition will be released tomorrow for those who are interested in that. Premier League edition should be released today. Just before we go, a reminder, we've got NFL action later. Houston Texans at New York Jets. A Jets side that have lost their last 5 straight games. The favourites on the money line, -127. And I can tell you now, 61% of the money is on the Jets for this game, but 70% of the tickets are on the Texans. And in terms of a spread, +2 on the Texans. We've got 60% of the tickets there. The most popular player props for this game, James, we've got Joe Mixon for an anytime touchdown, and that Davante Adams as well, anytime touchdown. He's recorded 71 or more receiving yards in 5 of his last 6 Thursday games as Davante Adams. The Jets are definitely underachieving compared to what they should be, and big injury for the Texans. Diggs, I think, is out for the season now, so let's see how they cope without him. What are you taking on Thursday Night Football for those who are getting involved in the NFL? Do put your bets down here on the comments live, or if you're watching on the replay. Do you trust the Jets? That's a really good question. Shakespeare's back. Doesn't bet on football much, but he does like the New York Jets tonight, -2. So there is a believer in the Jets. So Shakespeare is on a great run of form, so we can't ignore that, James. New York Jets are very much on my radar now. And an NBA pick here from Ranjiv Singh. Gary Trent, under 4.5. I don't even know what that means. I honestly don't have a clue about basketball. Rebound. I don't have a clue. Rebound. You're into it. Do you watch a bit?
I'm not really into it, but I think that's rebound. I think
rebounds and assists at -110. That's the bet. Gary Trent Jr., Milwaukee. So good to see that. Thanks very much, James. You've been brilliant as usual. Best bet of the day before we go for Thursday.
Best bet of the day is that pick on Fiorentina away to Genoa on the Asian handicap, -0.75 goal star at -108.
Yeah, my best bet of the day would be Fiorentina. Team total over 1.5 at -122. Let's hope Liv Viola can deliver today. Good luck, everyone, whatever you're taking. Remember to gamble responsibly, and I'll be back tomorrow with professional gambler Will White. And we're going to be looking through Friday's card and the weekend. So looking forward to that, and see you all on Betting Week Live tomorrow. Take care.